City Current. Produced by Dakota Media Access. In-depth discussion with Bismarck and Mandan city officials. Watch on Government Access Channel 602 HD or tune in to Radio Access 102.5 FM. Always local, always current.
Welcome to City Current. I am Mary Van Sickle here at Dakota Media Access Studios. I'm with Jason Timonek, City Administrator for the City of Bismarck. It's winter.
It's here. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's snowing. I shoveled.
It's like punishment. It seems like for the nice fall weather we've had so long. 50s and 40s up until, a couple of weeks ago at the most.
Very pleasant autumn.
It was great.
No complaints.
It was great.
Yeah.
It's kind of crappy right now. It's almost like what we experienced in January. I heard, too, it's going to be the coldest Thanksgiving we've had in 10 years.
Yikes. Yeah, there's definitely some January-like air out there.
Yeah.
When 20 feels warm, you know it was cold the day before.
Yeah. And the plows are out, the sanders are out, everything's, kind of moving. So
here we go.
Hopefully the roads can be clear for travel as people are shopping the next couple of days. Because we are recording this program on Wednesday, November 27th. It's the day before Thanksgiving. So.
And the day after the Bismarck City Commission meeting.
Yes. As always, we're here to talk about that City Commission meeting last night. It was a pretty full agenda, but not a very long meeting. So.
About an hour.
Yeah.
We had an executive session on the tail end of that, but not at liberty to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, we are at liberty to talk about a big announcement coming out of the airport. Yes, I think it was yesterday, about American Airlines opening up another route.
A route straight to Chicago O'Hare. So for travelers that are looking to get east and then to literally hundreds of destinations outside of Chicago, you'll have that opportunity coming up in the very near future.
Yeah.
So I know our airport director and staff are excited to have another offering for the community. There have been comments in the past, and we've got a lot of flights that go west, whether it be Las Vegas or the Phoenix Mesa area. If we can get east a little bit, I think this is a nice opportunity for people to have another connection. Obviously, Chicago O'Hare would be an international airport, so if you're looking to get across the pond, as they say, all the way to another continent, that might be a place to do it.
Yeah, and as I recall from the announcement, they were midday flights. So
right, yeah, decent
really
departure
nice.
Times, 10 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, arrival times 12:40 and 3:30.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Very civilized. Yeah, and do you have an idea when that starts?
June 5th, I believe, will be the first trip out. And so I don't know if tickets are available just yet, but for anybody that's interested, certainly go to the American Airlines website and
early
more
summer
information there too. Yep.
Yeah. So moving into the consent agenda, there were a number of items in the consent agenda that we pulled for discussion, but I don't believe any of the commissioners pulled them for discussion. So they were all approved in one motion last night. The first one we wanted to mention was the CVB Convention and Visitors Bureau lease. They're building up in North Bismarck, and also the lodging tax that amendment that was made.
Right.
Yeah.
So the CVB, Bismarck Mandan Convention and Visitors Bureau, 1600 Burnt Boat Drive, the building that they are in is actually owned by the City of Bismarck, and it was constructed in 1999 using federal highway dollars as part of transportation enhancement. And so for anybody that remembers summer of 1999, Exit 157 was rebuilt at that time. And through the federal highway and transportation enhancement funds, the CVB's facility was part of that project. It's my understanding, if I remember right, prior to that, the CVB was actually located in the parking lot near Kmart on State Street, if I'm thinking about it just right. So it does seem a little strange that the city would own a building there, but the intended use is, of course, to support tourism. And I think it's a great location, being right off the interchange and in an area of commercial development. The purpose of the lease extension is to give the CVB an opportunity to consider perhaps purchasing the building from the City of Bismarck. I have been in conversations with staff at the North Dakota Department of Transportation, who are then coordinating with Federal Highway to make sure that the city could effectively sell this building to the CVB, so that there wouldn't be any clawbacks or restrictions on the transportation enhancement dollars that were used. The use would not change. The CVB would stay in that location, of course.
Which
Which was its intended purpose.
Right, and that houses their offices,
Yep.
as well as providing like an information center for travelers along the interstate. So,
And they have a wonderful
That-
gift shop as well.
yes, and that proximity to the interstate is important.
Definitely. And I should mention also there's an EV charging station at that location
That's
as well.
right,
So for
yeah.
people that are looking for alternative fuel for their electronic vehicle, you can charge up there as well. So a great strategic location for them, a wonderful building. From the city's perspective, we're certainly not trying to get rid of a building, but at the same time, if the CVB has the ability to purchase and own their property,
Yeah.
all the better for them.
Well, and again, this was approved last night. It was basically just a one-year extension on the existing lease.
Correct.
So that these things can be worked out.
To allow these conversations
Sure.
to continue to
Okay.
materialize. We're still waiting. I'm still waiting to hear from the staff at the DOT whether or not there are any restrictions on the original agreement with Federal Highway.
Right.
So,
And the lodging tax also was part of this motion as well.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, the lodging tax, that's the hospitality tax,
Mm-hmm.
restaurants, hotels, what have you, contribute to this.
right,
And the CVB receives 75% of it.
correct.
And then your event center gets
25%
25%
goes to the
of that.
event center.
So
Yep.
that continues for another year as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And it's a 2% lodging tax is what it is. And so it generates obviously revenue for the CVB, but then a little bit of money to help support the operations of the event center as well.
Sure, sure. All right. Another item on the consent agenda that was approved was the extension of the economic development services provided by the Chamber EDC,
Yep.
as well as the downtowners.
Correct.
So that continues as well.
Continues. So that contract was approved last year, and within the contract there are 5 one-year extensions eligible within the parameters of the agreement. This will be the first of potentially more extensions. And so what does the Chamber EDC do for the city of Bismarck? What does the downtowners do for the city of Bismarck in the scope of economic development? A lot.
Yeah, well, they've been providing regular updates,
Yep.
so that's all part of the process.
Seen them, heard from them, and continue to appreciate the work that they're doing to support not only the reinvestment of many of the properties downtown, but then, of course, the Chamber is community-wide. And when I say community, it's both sides of the river, too.
That's true.
We're all in this
Yeah.
together.
For sure.
So,
So also consent agenda item, a call for a public hearing, and this has to do with procurement thresholds for city staff or city to purchase. Usually under emergency situations, this is used, but
Right.
I was interested to read in your agenda document that these thresholds haven't changed in 10 years.
right.
And we all know what expenses have risen quite dramatically in the last 10 years, for
Yep.
sure. So where is it, and where's it going then on this?
So where it was, for example, the Director of Public Works, either the service side, which would be Steve Solway, or the utility operations side, that would be Michelle Closey. The threshold previously for an emergency purchase was $50,000. That number has doubled to increase to $100,000. So that would be at the department director level. Emergency situations for utility operations or service operations. Utility operations, one example might be a pump. A pump at the water treatment plant, or a pump at the wastewater treatment plant, or a pump within any of the lift stations throughout the community. Very specialized, but also very critical infrastructure for us. Most places don't have specialty pumps just on the shelf. And so if these things go out in any emergency situation, we need to be able to procure that. This change in the ordinance would allow directors a little more discretion in their ability to purchase some of that specialty
Sure.
equipment in an emergency situation.
Okay, and this is a call for a public hearing, so it
Correct.
didn't get finalized last night. It will come up in a couple weeks at the next meeting, December 17th, I believe.
Right. We've
Okay.
just got one meeting in December because of the way the Christmas schedule landed. We chose not to have a meeting on the 24th. And so we're just going to have
Thank
one
you.
meeting in December.
Thank you
Yes.
for doing that. So, a couple weeks, that'll come up on
Mm-hmm.
the agenda as a public hearing. Also, last item we wanted to talk about that was on the consent agenda was has to do with your city attorney's office.
Mm-hmm.
An acting city attorney was appointed,
Right?
as well as a retainer allowed for legal assistance in this interim time
Correct.
period.
So the acting city attorney will assume her position on December 6th Janelle Combs, existing city attorney, her last day is December 5th. So December 6th, Julie Meese, who is one of the two assistant city attorneys, Julie will assume the responsibilities of the city attorney position. And then to help backfill the role that Janelle provided, we will be contracting with three separate law firms, one that will specialize in employment matters, one that will specialize in civil liability and litigation matters, and then one that just has general counsel for municipal matters. So it should be noted, we were very fortunate to have Janelle's dynamic skill set, whether it be real estate, contracts, property, employment law. She had exposure in a number of different fields in the past.
Yeah.
We'll be fortunate to have applicants that bring that same skill set forward. But in the interim, if necessary, we will rely on the resources of outside counsel. And so this was done as a way to fill the gap. The position for the city attorney's position is posted today. It's available for people to apply. However, the interview process and the steps after that have not yet been determined. So we will be without a city attorney, but now Julie will be the acting. But then that leaves her position.
Very proactive move,
as well.
Putting all these pieces in place just for the interim indefinitely.
It is, and it's a critical piece for us as staff. We have become very reliant on city attorney. All departments rely on the city attorney and the legal department to help with contract review, whether it be procurement or personnel matters. Sure. It's important.
Yeah, very much. So if you're just joining us, this is City Current. We're here to talk about the Bismarck City Commission meeting last night. Jason Timonek is here as the city administrator from the city of Bismarck. I'm Mary Van Sickle here at Dakota Media Access. We're going to jump into the regular agenda.
Transportation planning.
Big presentation last night, Arrive 2050. So we're looking at a lot of different pieces in the transportation plan. And you had a consultant come forward last night.
Jason Carby was here last night. Mr. Carby represents HDR and does a great job with long-range transportation planning. I've worked with Jason on past projects when I was in the planning role, and I think he was with a different office at the time, but nonetheless...
He is a familiar face.
He's done a number of projects with the MPO over the years, and the MPO, again, it's the Bismarck Mandan Metropolitan Planning Organization. This is different than the Mandan Progress Organization, which also has...
The other MPO.
The same acronym MPO. What we are talking about here is the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And this is a plan that gets updated every 5 years. It must be fiscally constrained, and it uses a planning horizon of 20 years. And what we're talking about here is all forms of transportation, whether it be, traditionally vehicle, bicycle or pedestrian, transit related. And there's a number of steps in the process. This was kind of the final report. But obviously, as with any plan looking long-range transportation planning, they're looking at safety, the economics, the maintenance of projects and corridors and transportation modes, and then just a baseline summary of issues and needs that come along with the different types of transportation in the community.
And there's a lot of data that goes into this, and a lot of estimates as far as population. And we've got a graphic on the screen right now, too. It talks about daily trips, vehicle miles traveled, hours traveled, trip length, where is it all going to land? And this helps guide them as far as their recommendations.
Correct. And part of the presentation that Mr. Carby gave last night showed a map, and the map is included in the agenda packet, so anybody that can navigate to the City of Bismarck's homepage or that can see the screen right now, there's a list of projects for the future, and these projects would be things like a roadway widening, roadway rehabilitation, new trails or side paths, trail rehabilitation, and then safety and highway safety and improvement projects as well. Things like improving a pedestrian crosswalk, shortening the crosswalk. Maybe it's putting up flashing beacons. Obviously, roadway rehabilitation, roadway widenings, those are pretty self-explanatory. So,
and a motion was made to accept the
accept the
plan.
recommendations, adopted it in a form of a resolution, and really what this does, it'll help tee up more projects for the MPO on both sides of the river. Bismarck, Mandan, Lincoln, Burley, and Morton. They're all part of the Bismarck-Mandan Metropolitan Planning Organization.
We'll probably see similar presentations happening over in Mandan.
Most likely.
Morton and Burley. Okay. Sounds good. There were also a number of public hearings last night. No public testimony. They all were approved, moved forward. We won't go through all of them, but the one I did want to pick up was kind of interesting. It was just a text amendment, if you would, about DUIs. Driving under the influence now includes not just alcohol, but any substance that could impair, driving.
Yep.
So that is kind of a little thing, but it will move forward.
Yep. And there was a paragraph that was removed as well. In the paragraph that was removed, which means it's no longer part of the ordinance, it previously stated an on-site screening test or tests of the individual's breath for the purpose of estimating the alcohol concentration in the individual's breath upon the request of law enforcement officer under North Dakota Century Code 39-20-14. And so obviously what I'm getting at here is our municipal ordinances play off of North Dakota Century Code as well. And so there is a foundation for these rules. Oftentimes, if there are changes in state law, we would have to reflect those changes in municipal law as well. And so I don't like to use the term housekeeping, but for many intents and purposes, this was a bit of a housekeeping ordinance here.
Tightening up the language. Yeah. Next on my list of notes and next on the agenda last night was a presentation by Renee Mock, Bismarck Burley Public Health, on the homeless group dealing with homelessness and their recommendations for community solutions. It's really just kind of starting out this new effort in this area.
Yeah, so back in August, the second meeting in August, the City Commission approved Renee's request to really effectively start to make progress on this idea of dealing with a community triage center. And for those that saw Renee's presentation last night, she has developed a pyramid, and the pyramid shows, at the bottom layer, it's people in crisis, people with the most needs. And then there's a middle level where there are people that have maybe not either hit the crisis mode or are moving beyond that. In that middle section, there are a lot of services in the community, a lot of different providers that are available for people with either mental health, behavioral health, addiction issues. And then at the top level is more of the success area. The point of Renee's presentation last night is to reinforce that public health with some community partners is going to be focusing on that crisis level. And so that is the first step to helping someone get towards recovery or an improved quality of life. Renee has identified some stakeholders, some community partners that are going to really push this conversation and start to identify where is the right place for a medical detox facility, who are the partners that are going to be supporting those services, what is the role of public health, how do we address homelessness in the community. Obviously, Ministry on the Margins is one of these stakeholders at the table right now. Renee indicated a small group is starting these conversations to develop a plan and figure out the right path moving forward. As those realizations and benchmarks are made, there will be more and more people coming to the table to help provide solutions and care and services and all of the things that are going to be part of implementing a successful path forward.
It's a difficult task and not exclusive to Bismarck area.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
This is an update. She'll be coming back, I would assume, as things progress.
This will be a big part of Renee's workload for the many months and potentially years into the future.
Yeah.
So, but she's up for it.
Yeah.
Renee has been working in this field in this particular area since the original composition of the group was called the Mayor's Gold Star Community Task Force. That was started when Mayor Mike's seminary was here. So we're talking probably 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
Renee's been working in this area. now her focus has become very, very honed, and I think we're going to start to see some really nice things coming
Again, honed towards this triage
towards
center.
the crisis level, the triage, getting people that initial care to get them to those more supportive services that lead to recovery.
Well, and I think the current weather situation kind of escalates it all in our minds as well, is that this is very much needed. So.
Absolutely.
DOT projects came forward by your city engineer, Gabe Schell, brought them forward. This is a regular
It's an annual
seasonal annual thing that comes forward from Gabe because the DOT has funding available under certain programs. One of them is the Urban Roads Program. Now, that there was no particular recommendation made there, at least for the Bismarck City Commission, because the MPO, again, driving a lot of this, has a Mandan project that is taking priority in the coming years. So nothing was brought forward for the Bismarck City Commission to consider last night necessarily. Urban Regional Program, that had a number of recommendations, and we've seen them before. They just haven't been funded yet.
Right. I think there were 2 or 3 that have been applied for in the past, and then a couple of new ones.
So he's tenacious. He's bringing them back to the table, and one of them has to do with signage. There's some signage in the community that needs to be repaired or more clarified and repaired or moved on with.
It's almost to the point that it might be categorized as vintage signage.
Vintage signage.
At this point.
So some of these were on the table last night, directional signage. There was stormwater improvements. We've got a picture on the screen that people have seen over the years of the 7th Street underpass full of water at certain conditions. We saw it again in August with the rainfall that we experienced that one evening. And this needs to be directed, but still hasn't had much attention in this one. So there's that. And then we also have the Boulevard and 7th and 9th intersections, signal
Updating
improvements
traffic
there.
signals. Yep.
You know, that. And then this is the
Westbound off-ramp of I-94 at exit 157 / Tyler Parkway.
which is another kind of wonky intersection that we developed over time. It's just the way it developed and needs some
I think that
some
was
improvement.
the 1999 project that led to the CBB's location where we talked about earlier.
All right. It's all connected. And then a trail rehab for State Street area. And this is a rehab, not a new trail.
A resurfacing of an existing trail from Divide Avenue north to Calgary Avenue, or if you want to say from Calgary south to Divide.
Right. And the
About a mile and a half of trail.
And the action of the commission last night was basically they gave him the blessing to move forward. These seem to make sense, continue to see if we can get funding through that. There also is a rail safety component to this. And there were a couple of, I think it was the intersection of 24th Street, this is a BNSF intersection on 24th Street, and then on 26th Street. There were some improvements. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're primarily pedestrian improvements, pedestrian safety.
Well, at 24th, there's a plan to replace or remove. There's actually 2 sets of tracks at 24th Street, and I don't know that the southern set of tracks is utilized. That would take people to a siding, but on 26th Street, you're right. The hope is to make it a pedestrian crossing along the west side of 26th Street that would then connect to the sidewalk and take people to points north and south from there.
So put a sidewalk in that area. And
yeah, we know people are walking through that corridor. You've got commercial uses on both ends.
Sure.
We should make it as safe as we can for people that want to navigate that area.
So again, blessing went forward.
Yep, go ahead and apply.
Yeah.
Consent was given, unanimous consent was given for Gabe to apply for these projects through the North Dakota Department of Transportation.
Yeah. You brought forward an item for the commission last night, and this was basically what I thought was more of a clarification on the hiring process for department directors.
Right.
This started back at the beginning of the year in January.
In January, the commission at that time approved an ordinance change that essentially what it was is it gave the appointing authority to the city administrator, and the appointing authority meaning for those department director positions. Not all positions as department directors, because the library director and the CENTCOM director. Both of those positions report to a different board. We have a library board of directors and then a CENTCOM executive board that is composed of people that are essentially receiving the services from CENTCOM. So those two positions are a little unique. Of course, the administrator position, the assistant city administrator position, and the city attorney position are appointed. Those don't fall under the discretion of the city administrator. So what are we left with? 11 department directors within the organization. The ordinance change authorizes the administrator to take the lead on that hiring process. And what I proposed last night and was unanimously received and supported was a hiring committee that would be composed of myself as the administrator, the mayor, the portfolio holding commissioner, if there is one that isn't the mayor, the HR director, and then a fifth person that would be a subject matter expert, whether it be someone from the organization or somebody from the community. And so if we were going to be interviewing for the new fire chief position, which we're not, Joel is doing a wonderful job as the fire chief, but if we are going to interview for something like that, that fifth person, a good candidate might be the Mandan fire chief or the state fire marshal or somebody that has a very intimate knowledge of what it takes to perform those duties. Ultimately, the commission agreed and said, yep, this is a great idea, let's go forward. One thing I should mention, we did talk about a little bit last night, there's certainly a little bit of a hierarchy when it comes to the police chief position. In a lot of cities, you see that position as a position of prominence because many will look at that as the department that keeps the community safe. Mm-hmm. I can understand why the commission would want to be a part of that process. And so if and when that opportunity would come forward, we might take a little different approach to involve a bigger stakeholder group. Obviously, the commissioners would have an interest in something like that. So I don't want to imply that it will be the exact same process for every single situation, but what it does primarily is it puts the administrator position in the driver's seat to work through these challenges every time they're coming forward. Yeah. Previously, of course, we had the city commissioners conduct that final interview and ultimately make that decision. There will be a little bit of a similarity, but not necessarily the same exact process going forward. And
this is coming forward at a fairly opportune time because you just had an announcement of a resignation of Michelle Closey.
Michelle has indicated that her last day with the city will be in March of next year, and so the timing is very opportunistic, as you noted, and we certainly wish Michelle the best as she looks at the next chapter, but it creates a new challenge for us as staff, and it will create an opportunity to test out this model and see how it works. We didn't just come up with this on our own. This wasn't just a power grab on my part by any means. I reached out to many other city administrators and said, what are you doing? How are you working through this process? The other thing it does is and I mentioned this at the meeting on Tuesday night, is that it protects the commission a little bit because we won't have to worry so much about open meetings and going through the process of applying. There are very understandable situations where someone might be applying for a position and they may not want their employer to know that they're actively looking for a new job.
Yeah.
If this material, if this information isn't presented in a public meeting, in a city commission meeting, it provides a little more discretion for those individuals that might not be interested in having it known that they're looking for new employment.
Which may result in more applicants, which has been a challenge.
It has been. Yep, you're absolutely right. And it's not to say that this entire thing will be shrouded in secrecy. That's not it at all. The City Commission always has the final say when it comes to hiring employees because as part of the consent agenda, the personnel action report is there. And so every time somebody is either hired, resigns, retires, terminated, the City Commission approves that as part of the consent agenda. So if there are questions or concerns, they would have an opportunity. Obviously, if there are challenging or unique situations, I'm not just going to keep that to myself. We would be coming forward and saying, commissioners, here is the situation. What would you like us to do?
I think the committee itself is a bit of a guardrail.
Correct.
Provides those guardrails. I mean, you've got the mayor, the portfolio holder, and your HR director having an equal say on this hiring process. So
I'm anxious. I'm excited to work through this new process. I also understand that this this process, this new approach, it has to work. We have to be able to demonstrate that this is the appropriate way to hire department directors and leadership staff within the organization. And so,
And if it doesn't, you can come back.
if it doesn't, we can come back and I'll say I'm sorry, and we'll go back to the old model. But I will work very hard with the others that will be part of each of these to make sure that it is a transparent and a trusted process that does produce the best employees for the organization.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Michelle Closey. Is that job posted yet?
Not
Will it
yet.
be?
So
Okay.
this will be part of the process, is that we will bring forward the job description, some hiring dates, some timeline, and what that process will look like. That was part of what the commission approved on Tuesday. There will be some action steps that I will need to go through with the support of Leanne Schmidt, the HR director, for the next meeting,
Okay.
and then it'll get the ball rolling.
So just for those that maybe aren't familiar with Michelle, she is the Public Works
Utility Operations Director. So we in-house we
An
say
important position.
it's the wet side of public works. So it's water treatment, it's wastewater treatment, and it's stormwater.
Yeah.
Very
Obviously, you're
critical.
looking at a very qualified individual for this
Yes,
education appropriate.
Historically, this position has been held by someone with a professional engineering certificate or a degree, a PE, as they say. But it's a very diverse department. It's got different divisions, whether it be, as I mentioned, water, wastewater, stormwater. There's also distribution and collection. The lift stations, the piping, the pumping, and all of that stuff. There's a lot of different people that work in this department, and it's a growing department. We are adding on to the water treatment facility. We are modifying the wastewater treatment facility, and we are constantly keeping up with federal regulations and guidelines and state requirements. It's a very technical position.
And that would, I would
it needs a
assume in
big
the
team.
next be posted within the next month at least.
Should be.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good. Well, that pretty much concluded the agenda items last night, but there was, Mayor always asks for other business. And Commissioner John Risch he was virtually attending last night, so it was just his voice coming in. But he asked for some future consideration about leaf collection in the community.
Yep.
Thought that was really interesting. I've always wondered about this. We're putting these leaves in these plastic bags and throwing them in a landfill. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's not the best use of a big giant hole that costs a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. Regardless of your politics on recycling or whatever it might be, nobody wants to pay for more landfill space.
Right.
And we're putting a lot in there that probably doesn't need to be there. So that I appreciated the fact that he brought this up. I think it makes a lot of sense.
It's an interesting conversation, and I think it came to him through some residents, maybe neighbors or people that he's friends with. But he shared two examples from neighboring cities, Grand Forks. And I experienced this when I lived there. Homeowners can essentially pile their leaves on the boulevard, and periodically in the fall, the city will come by with a vacuum truck and essentially suck up those leaves and take care of them. They're gone. Fargo, it's my understanding that Commissioner Risch has learned, the city of Fargo will encourage you to collect your leaves in bags and then take those bags to the boulevard, and at certain times in the fall, not every week, not all the time, but at certain times, the city will then come by, collect those leaves from your boulevard, but remove them from the bags. And so to your point, rather than put a compostable material into the landfill, they're likely putting it into their compost operations as well, and mixing it in with the grass clippings and everything else that they're using at their landfills. So a couple different options moving forward. Right now, we as the city would not have the equipment necessary to go around and suck those leaves up in a vacuum truck. But I don't doubt that we're going to explore this topic and see what it looks like for us in the future.
In the long run, again, saving landfill space hopefully is a cost savings as well.
Sure.
So it makes sense.
Yep. And I completely understand not everybody has a pickup. Not everybody has the ability to drag around big bags of leaves and take them to a recycling site and things like that. So is this a service that we might get into? I guess we'll see. Time will
We've
tell.
got some time.
We do.
Yeah.
And we got a few months before we're worried about picking up leaves again.
That's for sure. Yeah. Well, that wrapped up pretty much the meeting last night. Anything else to report on the Citizens Academy?
Well, I thank you for mentioning that. You have a few days to the end of November, so the application process is still open for Citizen Academy and all of the city advisory boards.
Okay.
It closes on November 30th. So if you're on the fence, put in your application, please, and
It's all on your website?
All on the website, right on the homepage, bismarcknd.gov. There's a big banner ad that will scroll across the screen. You can click on that, and it'll take you right to the form that you can fill out online. It shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes.
So we are recording this again on November 27th. So
Just
more
a
days.
few more days to the end of the month.
Yeah.
What about
Sounds
you? You
good.
got anything else?
Well, I just wanted to add, if you have not downloaded the apps for Dakota Media Access, please do. You'll find them to be very convenient. Obviously, they're free. Anywhere you get your apps, Android, Apple, whatever, just Dakota Media Access, and you can load our app and you can get live programming that's going out on either government access or community access. It also has an archive of the most current programming as well. Good, gets in there. So please load your app. They're very useful.
It's on my phone.
Yeah, I use it
It's handy.
too. It's great.
Yep.
Thanks for being here today. We'll see you in a few weeks.
It's always a pleasure. And we have a special December version. Is
We
that
do.
what I understand? I'll be sharing the studio with Mr. Neubauer.
Yes, we'll have a place for the Mandan City Administrator here as well. So.
I like to refer to him as
Yes.
Jimmy Mandan.
Yeah, yes. Well, and that came about because you had to move your meeting. Like you said, it was regular meeting would have been scheduled for Christmas Eve, which we don't want to, no one wants to do. So
Nope.
I'm
I'm excited to be in the studio with you and Jim. in
Yeah,
December.
that'll be fun.
I don't know that we've ever done that before, have we?
Yes,
Have we did it?
I think we did.
Okay, early
Back in
on,
the day.
probably when we were just getting started.
And we are decorated now for the
Yeah.
holiday, so we're ready to go. So have a
Outstanding.
great Thanksgiving.
You too.
Everybody travel safe. Wear your mittens and your boots right now. So thanks for joining us on this edition of City Current.
For more information on what was discussed in this episode of City Current, visit bismarcknd.gov or call 701-355-1300. If you have suggestions, comments, or issues you would like addressed in future episodes, contact us at info@freetv.org. This program airs on Government Access, Channel 2 and 602 in HD, or on Radio Access 102.5 FM. It's also available as a podcast on radioaccess.org and as a video viewing link at freetv.org. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of City Current.